It is a totally new game. It's an open world game. And it's a very, very
more new characters
as well.
Oh. Oh. Oh no, they're going to show his knob? No.
Hello and welcome to the virtual towers of binary Arcadia, where the games go on long into the night. Today we're talking all things Death Stranding. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the recently dropped 3 trailers at Gamescom 2019, where a lot of information came out. We'll be analysing that, including the flip charts, and we'll also be looking at the recent Heartman trailer from a couple of weeks back. So, let's join Tabz at the flip chart.
Mate, I'm not ready yet.
Sorry about that. I don't think Tab's quite ready for us. Okay, that's fine. I'll get on with the bit I need to do. So, one of the things we wanted to go over was, if you've seen our previous analysis of some of the trailers, we've talked about some of the things we think might be in the game. Well, after the trailers that came out in recent Gamescom, some of those have now been confirmed. So let's just have a little talk about them. So the first thing we wanted to say was, it is a solitary pilgrimage. You're a sole character and your mission is to cross this continent from east to west, connecting these various areas basically. And I know we discussed in previous trailers that this might be a physical connection, so you're actually carrying reels of wire, but it now turns out that this is, as we also said, that this is like a giant network, and I think they're calling it the chiral network. So that is your mission in essence, to reconnect the whole of America. Previously, in one of the trailers we saw, and in the background of one of the shots, we saw like a map of the continent, and some of it was highlighted in blue and some of it wasn't. We suggested that maybe that was your progression through the world, or through the game in essence, and we can now confirm from this trailer this week that that is the case. There's definitely survival aspects, which came out in the last piece we did about Death Stranding. This urinating thing that's come out is some sort of survival thing. We can also now confirm, because it's been told by Kojima himself, I believe, that Bridget and Amelie are mother and daughter, but they're played by the same actor, which is something that we said might be the case. I think we'd also said in one of the previous trailers that Heartman could be looking for his family. Well, obviously, because of the Heartman trailer a couple of weeks back, we know that to be fact. He spends his time looking for his family. And then one last thing that we can know for a definite fact, there was some different, Tabz thought the necklace was some sort of rune type thing that you could use. I thought it was maybe a key of some sort, looking more simple in that aspect. Well, it has been established that it is a key of types. It's like a security key that unlocks the chiral network for these places that you go. So let's go over to Tabz at the flip charts, where we'll have a more illustrated broad brush look at what we're going on. And then after this, we'll have a very granular look at the trailers, all 4 of them. Now, hopefully, Tabz is now ready for us.
Hello everybody, and thank you Rich for giving me a few more moments there. I am finished now. So yeah, first of all, what have we got? Well, I've done this little doodle and illustration of the title of Death Stranding with a slight change, because in true Kojima wacky fashion, what did he show? The first bit of actual gameplay we see after all these dramatic and intense trailers, and he shows Sam waking up and having a wee. I mean, I don't know.
Classic Kojima.
Absolutely, Rich. So yeah, this is just a Mickey take. This is Sam looking over his shoulder as he has a wee. And I'll quickly point out a little reference. It's I think Game Explain put a video together of this gameplay trailer, but with Mario music attached, and it's definitely worth a watch, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it's hilarious. We'll drop a link to that in the description. That's the word I'm looking for.
As you can see, Rich, there's an awful lot going on this one. So it's supposed to be like a 2D cross-section, really, of an update, really, on what the world looks like and kind of what the journey is going to be. So let's start, if you can see this compass here, on the east side, because we now know that Sam's journey for the most part is going to be, this sort of solitary pilgrimage from the east side to the west side of this UCA, or United Cities of America. So we're almost certain at this point, I think, Rich, that the starting point is going to be at this, what is potentially a dilapidated White House now, where Bridget, who appears to be the founder of the UCA, is infirmed. And we saw in that 9-minute trailer originally Bridget laid up in a hospital bed. So we believe that's where the kind of mission starts. We also know now, because of a briefing trailer that's not yet been shown to the public, that Amelie is Bridget's daughter and apparently is being held captive by the homo demons who inhabit Edgenot City, which here I'm pointing to on this doodle is this kind of cityscape in red with the smoke coming out of it, and I've annotated it, Rich, just so you can see as Amelie ?
Yeah.
This is my guess. I don't know where Edgenot City actually lies, but I believe it could be in this vicinity. It's where on the map, as you pointed out, Rich, and perhaps we can flash this up on screen, there's a considerable number of big blotches that we presume might be void outs.
Yeah, and I think we've heard from some blurb that they are deliberate void outs that the homo demons are specifically doing to help their cause.
Absolutely, they're engineering them. It's a terrorist tactic to, scare, provoke, and keep people living in fear. So this is what we think. So we've gone from right to left there. The craters here are basically these void outs, which we now understand almost certainly, Rich, that a void out is when you die, you go to the world of the dead and you come back.
In essence,
and creates these void outs. Now, just to stay on this side of the map, you can see also we've got these kind of underground tunnels, kind of a labyrinth of tunnels. Excuse my crude drawings here, and think Fallout Shelter, if you've seen that game. But what we understand, and we'll touch upon this later, won't we, Rich? But we understand
we will.
The majority of the actual, if you like, the population of the UCA is probably, they're probably underground. Because we think that the surface of this world is far too hostile for, your average person to inhabit, survive in. And there's a few clues to that, isn't there, Rich?
Yeah, so just to fat that one out a bit, what we've established is the only people we have seen in the physical world are people affected by the physical world. Think Mama, think Heartman, think Fragile, think Sam. All these people are in some way linked or have some unique bad thing to the world. Yeah, exactly.
They have a unique connection to the world of the dead, which we will come on to, but certainly they've got some sort of, almost special ability or a reason to be there, to remain in a certain form.
Or a certain place. Everybody else we've seen has appeared basically as a hologram, and there's even stuff come out today to suggest that the only time we've seen Amelie is as a holographic form. So it's either in a flashback or in the other world.
And a good little segue there, actually. It seems to me, Rich, and I think you might agree, that Amelie perhaps almost acts as, well, if we think of Breath of the Wild, Link and Zelda, and that sort of telepathic connection they have, it appears that Sam is going to have that sort of telepathic connection with Amelie. Because I'm sure I've read that in this briefing, it says something about Amelie is free to contact Sam whenever she wants and speak with him.
Yes.
But she is held captive, at least physically, in this Edgenot City. So I think we're going to see a number of what, almost flashback / telepathic sequences where they're communicating with one another.
Yes, definitely.
And in that way, she's a guide. So yeah, that's what we're going to say for now. Just to touch one more thing with these underground caverns, the gameplay, as Rich has already mentioned, the Ludens fan. Well, again, we see him holographic form. It seems to be a bunker, appears to be a lift going down. That's essentially what we're basing it on, I think, aren't we, Rich? And the fact that it makes sense that people would be living underground.
We did originally have the thoughts that maybe people were living on the moon, and that's how the moon is some way linked. But I think that with the fact that the transportation, once Sam makes his delivery, goes downwards, that suggests more that it's in some sort of underground city or whatever.
I think so. I think it sounds much more practical. The moon thing we'll come back to later. There's a reason why we think there's obviously this big involvement in the moon, but I think it is much more likely that people are underground. So let's move on. So we've got this this 2D cutout, as I say, which is vaguely based on this map we've now seen in the recent gameplay trailer. So what have we got next? We've got this big ocean or body of water kind of halfway through the UCA. And again, I think you can see this on the map. We'll flash it back up, but this is just to the left of the big blotches. You appear to see, don't you, Rich, some sort of a body of water. And if we think about some of what we've seen of the game and the map so far, we have seen these great expanses of water, some islands dotted about, and then obviously this huge mountain scape as well. So I've just put some BTs here just to illustrate the fact that obviously at various points in this kind of pilgrimage from east to west, BTs are going to be a big problem, going to be an obstruction, a hurdle. You know, obviously if you've not seen our previous trailers, we've got a big theory about the asynchronous gameplay dynamic and mechanic that Rich has come up with, and I'm still confident on that. But we won't dwell on that too much at this point. So finally, on the far left or the far west, we've got this mountainscape. Now we've actually put this little house here just to point to. From the character video, it appears that Heartman could reside in the mountainside. Yeah. So again, this is a question mark. We're not sure on that, but potentially. So let's tie a few of the bits together. Well, we've got, if you see here on the mountainscape, we have the kind of giant chiral sensor. Again, we've seen this size of chiral sensor out in the wilds before in the 9-minute trailer. And then we've also got a ray dome on the far right here. And that is just to signify, again, as Rich has already mentioned, this chiral network that we're mending during our pilgrimage from east to west. And as far as we know from the briefing, it is to essentially link people up and spread a message of hope to everybody. You know, that people are coming together again. Go on, Rich.
The one thing I'll say to that is, and we will come on to this when we get to the things, something Deadman says that really interests me. He says, we don't know enough about BBs at the moment. We'll know more. We'll be able to get more past the data, the more of the chiral network we re-establish. Now, I think that's really interesting. It somehow suggests that in some way they lost all of the information they had, all the research that they had for whatever reason when this chiral network was dispersed. And in order to get that knowledge back and those information they need to better understand these things, that's another reason for re-establishing this chiral network.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to be multi-layered. I think as we can connect this chiral network again, you know, there's going to be all sorts of things that lead to essentially progress within the game. I think the big grand metaphorical theme that Kojima is trying to put through is kind of a socialist message. It is saying, you know, live and work for the many, not for the few, if you like. He's trying to say, let's come together because that's how we'll thrive, not be separate, not live individual lives, not be selfish, essentially. And I think that is the overarching theme of the whole game. And essentially that plays out literally with the chiral network, that the more we build together, the more we come together, the more connections we make, you know, the more resources we'll basically have to progress. And then just to kind of wrap this slide up, you can see this, again, very crude constellation in the sky, which kind of looks a bit like an arrow. Now this was taken from the top down of the map, and I think what it's actually showing on the map in this gameplay footage we've seen, these actually are individual nodes of the chiral network that have been activated by Sam. We see him actually activate this Luden's fan base in the trailer, and that appears probably somewhere around here as a separate node. What's interesting, I thought, was that it doesn't actually join up in constellation with the nodes we already see on the map. Whether that happens later, or whether this is something to do with the fact that these are sort of main nodes, so that maybe they're of greater importance. And part of me was thinking, could that also be that these mainline nodes are also, could potentially act as fast travel points? We've no idea on that particular part of the game. Maybe it is all just, you know, you have to move around in the world manually. But
no, there must be some sort of fast travel. It's the whole continent of America.
Well, we don't know if it's the scale, but yeah, it's definitely the shape of America,
no,
isn't it? But
yeah, I just, yeah.
I hope
must be some
there
sort of
is
fast travel.
I hope there is, because it will certainly make things a bit easier than trampling about everywhere. But yeah, it just got me thinking on that. And again, we'll come back to it later in the gameplay. And then finally, for this slide, we've got this cratered moon. So, as Rich and I have already pointed out, we think the final destination is going to be on the moon. Again, we see in this gameplay trailer, there's a couple of little links to the moon. If we looking on Luden's base itself, it says from Sapiens to Luden's, kind of suggesting that there's this mission to the moon, or mission to colonize the moon. We're evolving from Homo sapiens to Homo Ludens. So we're literally going to try and inhabit the moon. And further to that, there's a poster also inside, which we zoom in on. And again, there's another little secret there, but essentially it's this Luden's character and figure, which, we understand is kitted up in a spacesuit to, tread on the moon. I mean, another little interesting thing there, Rich, is the fact that there's this kind of connection there between the craters on the moon, which we know in real life is a real thing, and the craters in this Death Stranding universe, which are created by void outs. So perhaps that's Kojima using a bit of real life science to link into his, alternative take on reality. So that would be interesting. Anything more from you, Rich, on that one?
No, let's move on to the next slide.
Let's move on. So, I suppose just to summarise while I'm tearing this, we said there's this grand metaphorical message from Kojima, connection, bringing people back together. And I think that really is the overarching theme. In terms of your main mission, we do know a few more bits now that Sam's on this pilgrimage to reconnect to network. We'll come back to it, but he's also got this bridge baby, which it seems he's going to develop a bond with, and perhaps, as Rich says, with this past data reference, try and figure out a way of saving. And we've also got these key characters, each with a tragic story of their own, which in some way feels like side quests that Sam is going to try and resolve. And then, of course, before we even go beyond that, we Amelie, we know we've got to rescue. The Homo demons, perhaps we've got to try and defeat. And then eventually there's Cliff. So if you do look at it in the detail, there's loads of moving parts, but perhaps try and distance yourself from that and, just think of it in the broader kind of themes of the game.
The one thing I'll say to that is most games where characters appear as side missions or NPCs, they're often, you don't really feel for them particularly. Whereas for all that we've seen of these characters, they have like a unique story. You feel for them, you have emotion towards them, you want to see their story resolved in some way. And I feel like Kojima's, he's played with our emotions a little bit there to get us to engage more if they are side missions, to see them as people rather than as characters in a computer game.
Oh, and absolutely. And I mean, not so much with Deadman yet, but certainly we've seen with Mama and, basically the allusion to the fact that her baby died. And also with Heartman, and again, we're pretty much certain that he's lost his family to this Death Stranding. Those are significant tragedies which very quickly connect with people. So yeah, you're absolutely right. He's really focusing on that emotional message there and connection, which, will give a real motive to playing through the game. So next slide up, Rich, we now have the logos, the various logos, mostly taken from, or if not entirely taken from the gameplay video, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
So, do you want to touch upon a couple of bits and then throw it back over to me, my friend?
Yeah, so I'll take some slightly easier ones. So carry capacity, it does pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. It basically references how much weight or equipment or delivery parcels Sam can carry at any one time. I'm guessing through upgrading the kit you've got, basically you're able to carry more equipment, so that will be a moving thing during the game. And we saw in the gameplay trailer when you drop cargo, obviously it goes down how much you're carrying, so we know that's definitely linked.
It made me think specifically of Skyrim, mate, or Oblivion back in the day, where you have this kind of specific numerical capacity. And in that game, if you go over that, you become what they call, I think it's over encumbered, and your character basically moves at like a snail pace through the environment.
Oh wow!
So it kind of reminds me of that. I'm sure it's going to play a little bit differently, but little reference there.
Yeah, I wonder whether maybe it does play similar to that, and that's why we've seen these exoskeletons. Maybe that's how it enables you to move at a normal pace again. So it's interesting.
Well, I'll take your baton on that one, Rich, just because I think it potentially links, and you might have another idea on this, but you see the blue smiley face with the 4 bars. I think this is, I'm not sure, but I think it might link to Sam, because the blue face is certainly longer like an adult human. I mean, initially I thought, is it something to do with Sam's happiness? But then the 4 bars, it makes me think, could this link to a stamina bar for Sam?
Yeah, and I agree on this. I feel like this is your Zelda stamina bar, which we sort of potentially put across as a theory in the previous video. And I think this is why, this relates to Sam's tiredness, you know, and that's why we've seen him sleeping and resting. So this is how he recuperates. So 4 bars is obviously full, and obviously that depletes. So the more you move through the environment,
and maybe there's like a specific sort of state of being for Sam on each bar. So, you know, 4 bars, he's real perky and can turn on sixpence. As you get down, he starts to get more sluggish, and then, you know, the last bar, he's probably almost dragging his feet everywhere. I could almost imagine that sense, and like you say, Rich, perhaps sleep, perhaps food, perhaps water boosts that again. And certainly carry capacity is surely going to deplete that a lot quicker the more you've got.
So the necklace is called a Q-pip necklace, and that's basically your security key tag that you use to activate nodes in essence. But it does appear from one of the things we've seen that it's upgradable, or at least it appears to be. I think at one point we've seen that it's a level 1. So that sort of suggests that, much like say an MGS, if you had a key card, you had like a level 1 key card, level 2, and you could only go through certain doors, etc. I think maybe the necklace is upgraded in some way, whether it's through further nodes activation or whether it's through something that you have to do with the necklace. But I think definitely that in some way you have to upgrade the necklace in some way throughout the game in order to activate certain nodes.
I'm on board with that, because let's be honest, it's an open world game and there has to be ways to gate progression. So you can't just go wherever you want in the world from, you know, day dot. And I think this sounds like a way, you know, perhaps you can't activate certain nodes on the chiral network until you've leveled it up to such a point that you can actually, you know, you're allowed to do that. And that is a nice way to slow the progression, you know, and let the narrative play out at its own natural pace. You know, it's a slightly different style to Breath of the Wild, but, you know, one of the downsides to Breath of the Wild was, well, it had no real story, probably because they didn't gate progression almost at all. So a bit more structure in this game, we perhaps think.
Yeah, absolutely. This will have a story. The story will be everything in this game, whereas it wasn't necessarily the case in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I'm thinking epic, isn't it? It's going to be like Red Dead Redemption caliber. Well, I'm hoping. With that Hollywood talent on board, you don't want to put that to waste.
Oh, yeah.
And then just to link over from the Q-pip, this from the same screen, I think links in, we see this kind of like, well, you think of your mobile phone straight away, kind of bars of signal. And I think, you know, this is probably something to do with the fact that the more nodes we activate, the stronger we develop the chiral network, well, the better the signal strength. What that means, I don't know. It's something to do with reach in this world and maybe sending messages. It's a bit vague, that. I don't really have any conclusive thoughts on that. I don't know if you do, Rich.
No, I mean, there's lots of things it could be. I mean, maybe we can't survive too long outside of the chiral network, so the signal strength is important as we move out of a place that isn't chiral activated. Yeah, it's a really difficult one. That's an enigma at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we'll come to that hopefully at Tokyo Game Show when we get the next big chunk of gameplay.
Yeah, which I think is only like 2 or 3 weeks away. So
woohoo! Richarlison,
I do think that will be the last we see of anything big to do with this game. I don't know how much more he'll want to show us over and above what he shows at Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, I think so. And to be honest, I don't think I probably want to see. From the sounds of it, it's going to be a massive gameplay dump. After that, I kind of want to save all the good bits for myself or for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
So yeah, what's
Anyway.
next, Rich?
So we've touched upon this on another. I think the big deep dive into the 9-minute trailer, the boot durability. Now we've seen in almost everything we've seen. It's in this latest gameplay trailer. It was in the trailer, the 9-minute trailer that dropped in whenever it was May. Boots are a big thing in this game. He seems to carry additional boots around with him all the time, and that sort of suggests that we're walking so much that we're wearing our boots away. And then that's why there's this meter for boot durability. That's what we're thinking anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fairly straightforward, that one. And just another little kind of thing to throw in the mixer to keep you on your toes, so to speak.
Yeah. Nice.
Next up, I'll take on this BB. I mean, there's a question mark here because I'm not entirely sure on this. I think it could be one of two things. It could literally be, it could be one of three things. A bond, the level of bond with your BB. I think it's probably unlikely. It could also be to represent the happiness of the BB. But more likely, we've seen in the Deadman trailer that they can suffer from, I think it's referred to as autotoxemia. And it's something to do with the fact that the BB is kind of poisoning itself, perhaps when it gets to, a state of depletion where, it needs to be updated, its homeostasis needs to be synced with its, and we'll come back to this, but still mother. So I think it's probably a meter to do with that. You've got to keep an eye on it and eventually kind of dock or find a hub where you can, re-update the BB and return it to its homeostasis. Rich, anything more on that one?
No, now I do think this is a time thing. So I think this is a meter that depletes all of the time. And then that's why you have to get them back to wherever it is that they need to be recharged or resynced, as they're calling it, with their still mother. I think this is a bar that's depleting all of the time, in essence.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think it's probably, depleting all of the time, but chunks can be knocked off if you distress the baby.
Yes.
So in the trailer, we saw Sam fall off, the baby gets upset. Anything that disturbs the baby is probably going to, speed up that depletion. Richard?
And so, golden chiral hands. Now, this is a strange one. So we've obviously seen this little logo as a part of a menu that we've seen. We've actually seen these golden hands, and I'll flash a screenshot of this up now. We've actually seen this in was it the Japanese special trailer?
Yes.
It was slightly extended over the May trailer by 10 seconds or something, and we actually saw these like golden hands grow out of the ground. We have no idea what they are. We have no idea what they're referenced to. Currently, we're thinking there are either some kind of currency. We know that gold material appears to be prized within this world, for seemingly its paranormal properties, you could argue.
Yeah, because what we've said before, Rich, but while we say it's gold material, it's just a gold-like material. It's probably more likely that because of the phenomena of the Death Stranding, it's actually created some new element or new compound, and that's what these chiral hands are. And we think that they're, like some, as Rich says, a prized currency. And it appears that they're also used as either status symbols, but also they empower abilities, because a lot of the homo demons seem to almost not just wear them, but perhaps use them as well.
And I had a wacky thought on this. Kojima said in the blurb that was talking about between the trailers at Gamescom, he said during the urination thing, if multiple people urinate in the same place, something big could happen. And we've already seen these gold hands like almost grow up out of the ground. So I was wondering whether if we all like urinated in the same place, whether these gold hands would come up out of the ground.
Yeah, like the chemicals, the ammonia or whatever from Wii has some sort of reaction and creates I like that. That's as good as theory as I've heard.
Especially if they are currency, because that would be a game changer, wouldn't it? It would be a way of getting more of the currency. by working together with your friends.
Yeah, to grind it, if you like, by weeing.
Well, yeah,
together.
exactly, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like madness on a page, but yeah.
It does sound
works.
like Kojima.
Yeah. So yeah, just to kind of underline this one, the gold coral hands, or whatever this is certainly the most mysterious of the symbols, I think. And that's our best guess. However, I have seen a couple of other theories out there, one of them being that they could stand for the amount of times that you've voided out, that you've died and come back, because we know that leaves hand impressions on Sam's skin. I still prefer ours personally, but we are, it's inconclusive really. We're not so sure on that one. So yeah, we've got the likes. There's a couple of references to predicted likes when Sam drops off an item. There's this measure itself, which, literally seems to tot up all of your total likes to date. Real mysterious one again. I've said to Rich, I would love it, since I think Kojima's referenced social media being part of the problem this day and age, and we know that this whole game is perhaps his kind of message towards that, antidote to something like that, along those lines. I'd love it if Kojima has actually constructed a functional social media system within the game of Death Stranding, which literally has each player assign a profile, if you like, and therefore there's some way that we can also like each other's activities. I just think that would be such a cool thing, and very new and very revolutionary, and that's Kojima all over. However, the other side of the coin, it could just be a kind of a pseudo social media system that's literally, it's in the game, people give us likes, or these underground folk give us likes for doing things for them. So it's not really a functional one with actual people at the end of it. It's more the way the world, which again I suppose makes sense, if you're trapped underground you can't really communicate that well with people. It's a way of people saying, oh, thank you though, we really appreciate it, even though I can't see you and say hello and thank you. So that's probably my two main theories on the likes. Rich, anything from yourself on that one?
No, I think that's as good as it gets for that. It's a very mysterious one. I don't get this at the moment.
No, it's definitely a strange one. And then do you want to finish this off with the...
I'm not 100% certain what this is. I mean, I guess it's the heart, so you could suggest that maybe this is Sam's health. But I don't understand why it is. I mean, I think it probably is his health. We've seen it come up in another trailer, and I think again this was the extended Japanese trailer from May. We've seen actually this come up to suggest that maybe this is him taking hits and it going down. I just can't understand why it's done in milliliters. I can't quite fathom that one. I
mean, it might be as simple as, well, we know that you wee in the game, so that means there must be a mechanic or a requirement to take on water. So maybe water is literally just, the way you heal in this game. And it sounds perhaps not so true to life and a bit too easy, and a bit doesn't quite make sense, but maybe that is just it. The way you heal in this game is to take on water, and that's why it's a factor of your health. But other than that, like you, Rich, I'm a bit, confounded as to what that actually means. The hearts just screams health, but the milliliters is like, okay, don't quite follow with that. So yeah, so we're happy with that one, Rich.
Yeah, on to the next slide.
On to that. And so we've got the Deadman character, Del Toro's character, from the recent trailer that was shown off with the BB. And we got to know essentially the most information, more to do with the BB. Deadman is still a bit of an enigma. One thing though to point out about Deadman is, well, we see during the trailer that he kind of breaks up as if he's a hologram. So one of the questions is, well, where is he? He's not with Sam. So does that mean he's in these underground caverns? Who knows? We're not sure on that one. The other side of things is, well, we've seen in previous trailers with Deadman that he's got this scar on his head, which obviously always looked a bit strange. Now we know a little bit more about the nature of the world, and specifically, as we'll come on to with the BBs, the still mothers and how they operate. It's made me think that Deadman is perhaps called Deadman for a reason, because he's probably somebody who died, but they were able to keep his brain alive. And that's why he's called Deadman, because he's dead man walking. And what they've perhaps done, because he's maybe a really talented scientist, they've transplanted his brain into another person's body, Del Toro. And that seems to kind of make sense with this scarring on his head. Another interesting thing is, and we've talked about how each of these characters seems to have a very unique connection with the Death Stranding, and the reality is, well, what does that mean for his ability to, interact with both the world of the living and the world of the dead? Because if you are a dead man, does that give him some, sort of ability to cross over at will? I'll be interested to see on that one, and yeah, I think there could definitely be something that we explore with that. And then coming back to the BBs, well, yeah, so we finally found out a little bit more as to what these guys are, and unfortunately they are still real babies who essentially have been born from these still mothers who appear to be women who are, their bodies are being kept alive, but their brains are actually, they're brain dead essentially. And I suppose they're kept on almost ice somewhere in some, I think they call it Capital Knot City, some central place. So yeah, I mean, Deadman specifically refers to them as being equipment, so don't get attached, and specifically why? Because they have a 1-year lifespan. They're prone to short lifespans. And essentially what's happening is they help us maintain or connect to the world of the dead because, well, essentially I suppose their mothers have died. They're brain dead. And what they're doing is they're tricking these babies into thinking that they're still in their mother's womb, which is part of the kind of deceit that they have to keep up to use the babies effectively. So unfortunately, it doesn't alleviate the moral dilemma any further. In fact, it probably makes it worse for me. But yeah, that's where we are with that. There's just a quick reference to oxytocin as well, and the dosage of oxytocin, which, if you don't know, I've done a bit of research. It's like the love hormone or the cuddle hormone, they call it. So it's all to do with bonding, essentially, and has a big effect to do with father, child, mother and child, and how we create bonds together. So that's interesting. And then finally, a reference here to the autotoxemia that Deadman mentions, the fact that these BBs can kind of poison themselves in their environments, that perhaps their homeostasis is destabilized, and to return them to that, they have to sync up again with these still mothers via an update. So yeah, I mean, I think that's enough on that one, but just to kind of reference what Richard says, I think this comes back to another big point of the game, trying to keep our BB alive, because I think essentially, you're going to bond with the little fella over the course of the journey. So let's move on. So next up, we've got Heartman, and this was, as we know, the first character profile video that we saw a couple of weeks back now. And again, initially it didn't seem like we got an awful lot from it. I think the main thing for me in the context of the story as a whole, well, we found out that Heartman suffers from this condition that he dies every 21 minutes and remains in the kind of the world of the dead / purgatory for 3 minutes. This happens, I think it's something like 60 times a day. And he's learned to kind of form this lifestyle where he consumes entertainment that all lasts about 21 minutes or within that. And he dies. This thing strapped to him essentially is a defibrillator that brings him back to life. And attached to that fact is, well, he's actually, his purpose is really, when he visits this world of the dead or purgatory, he's looking for his family who appear to have been lost. We can assume perhaps in the Death Stranding. So that's his tragic background. But yeah, the key piece of information is with some quick and dirty maths. He actually gives us the amount of times he's actually died. And if we kind of work back from that, well, approximately it equates to 9.97 years, or nearly a decade. So,
approximately.
Well, yeah. I've taken this from a wiki online, so maybe we'll post a link to that. I don't want to take credit for it. But yeah, essentially, that might spell what is the beginning of the Death Stranding, when this big cataclysm occurred. So that's a nice bit of kind of historic fabric to understand the game with. Other than that, we've already mentioned, but we think because of this kind of, he's got this, we'll come to it later, but there's a big kind of screen where he resides. It appears to show like a mountain scape outside. Whether that means he actually lives there, or if it's just one of these digital screens that's just putting an image up that doesn't represent actually where he is in place and time? We don't know, but there's the question mark. Does he live in the mountains? Who knows? Rich and I have a couple of our own theories about what his kind of role may be. Specifically, we think he might be a vendor of some kind. Most of that is based on the fact that in the trailer you briefly see behind or near to Sam, or on Sam's right on the sofa, there's like a table, and there appears to be some sort of a body bag there. So we've already seen in previous trailers, Sam seems to carry bodies around with him. We don't exactly know why he does that, but perhaps Heartman has the ability, by virtue of the fact that he can visit the world of the dead temporarily, to perhaps communicate with the dead. Maybe the body's presence allows him to connect with them during those 3 minutes, and Sam will, throughout the journey, bring in some kind of key people who have died that we still need answers from, or clues to solve a greater mystery. So we're thinking that could be Heartman's main role. And then finally, I mean, we don't really know, but again, in this similar shot with Sam on the sofa, behind him there's 5 display cases. And that seems to be, they seem to hold like almost rocks or minerals. So again, is this just literally for decoration in Heartman's place, or could it mean something a bit more? Are there maybe 5 key resources in this world that again factor into the whole survival dynamic, the whole resource dynamic, and are things that Sam needs to collect and can grind and progress and create new equipment with them? We're not sure, but it's an interesting idea. Right, so that's Heartman down, and then finally we've got the lovely Mama. So a few things with Mama. We've now think, linking back to the 9-minute trailer we saw, and there's a brief clip where Mama appears to scream out, and there's this kind of debris, big stone concrete panels that are crushing her essentially, and you immediately think, oh, well, she clearly dies in the story at some point. Well, we find out, of course, in this recent trailer that Mama is connected to her child, her daughter, who has passed over to the Death Stranding, but still remains connected with her. So we're pretty certain now that that previous scene actually relates to the moment when she, the world collapsed on her, if you like, or the building collapsed on her and perhaps killed her child, sending her daughter over to the Stranding. We also see in the background of this particular trailer a collapsed roof, which again just kind of ties in with that. And she also mentions to Sam that she's kind of anchored to this place now. She can't move because perhaps it will break this connection she has with her daughter. So she has to stay where she is. That's interesting specifically as well, because it's almost the reverse situation of the still mother dynamic that we've just talked about. In this case, though, it was almost the baby that was not stillborn, it died, but in utero, I suppose you would say. So that's why they've maintained this connection. So again, it's going to be really interesting because it's like an inverted BB, if you like. And obviously that might gift Mama ways to connect with the Death Stranding or the world of the dead in a very unique way. Which is one reason why, again, like Heartman, she might also be a vendor of some kind. She might serve to push the story along and give Sam specific access or clues or intel based on her unique ability and connection. But furthermore, in a much more obvious sense, we definitely see a number of vehicles in the background where she is. And it appears to us that she could serve the role of the bridges mechanic, if you like. So she builds, creates, modifies, maintains all of the vehicles in the game, which hopefully there's a few, but we've certainly seen Sam ride on this kind of motorbike hybrid. That's probably about all we've got to say on Mama. So yeah, I think that's it, Rich. If there's any final thoughts from you before we jump over to the blow by blow?
I think it's time to get into the trailers. So, the first trailer from Gamescom we want to talk about is the gameplay trailer. Now, I know this was the last trailer to be shown at Gamescom, but we need to link back to this when we talk about the characters, so that's why we're going to talk about this one first. So, let's get going. M for maturity, obviously. And we can see Sam's resting here.
Beautiful landscapes.
Yeah, I mean the
Foliage. Look at
graphics
the
are just
detail on
incredible,
those
aren't
plants.
they? Yeah.
It's baffling.
Look, they're blowing in the wind and everything.
I know. The Decimer engine really flexing its muscles. And
It really shows the connection that he's got with the baby there, the way he's cradling it, like he cares about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like the fact you can just seem to go sleep anywhere.
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? You just...
Let's get it moving.
My feed is a little touch laggy, Rich, so you might have to lead us with this one, but I'll touch base where I can.
Here we go. So he's decided he's going to urinate. So this is the first glimpse of this. I think we possibly saw a glimpse of this in a previous trailer, but this is obviously a thing now. And to ensure that there's no modesty lost here, you can see that they've quite cleverly sorted it so that there's a mechanic in play here so that you can never see what he's doing, which is quite cool.
And we see the specific milliliter filling of his
which
bladder.
is interesting.
As it depletes.
And then we see a mushroom grow where he's urinated, which I don't really get that.
That was very peculiar and random, wasn't it? But
Lovely. We saw some texture problem there. Lovely, lovely like physical movement by Sam. We can see the boots that we specifically talk about. And if you look on the far left of the screen now, you can see one of these radomes. It's just gone off screen.
yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you can obviously scan the landscape here, and if we just pause it there for a moment, you can see that there's these crosses and various artifacts on the rocks or higher ground. It's interesting. I wonder whether that's suggesting you can't traverse over that, or there's some interaction to be had with that.
I think so, yeah. I think that's probably to do with one of the tools he's got, and that's saying, no, you can't put that here. But then you see the little dots, maybe that's where you can put it.
Ah, okay, I like that.
Some sort of an anchor, maybe. Either that, or is it a resource that can be mined? I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe both. There's a possibility of both. You happy to continue? And just while we're paused here, you can see on there that Sam is carrying boots. Again, linking back to the fact that we think in some way you can deplete your boots.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have spares on you just in case. And yeah, I really like what you said there, Rich. You know, that animation you saw earlier, there is a very physical connection with the world around Sam. And there's almost definitely like a context-sensitive animation for, you know, different types of ground and...
There's something just here, I didn't quite get it. There's a little thing comes up there that says climb, suggesting that you can climb rocks. It's not just a case of using your equipment, you can also physically climb a bit Breath of the Wild-esque.
Which I'm sure there'll be risks attached to that, won't there?
Yeah, obviously. So he gets his ladder out. We've seen this before on the previous game, or the previous trailer we saw back in May.
It appears he's
Really
locked
cool
on.
mechanic.
He's locked onto this node, as we know now, because you can see this little house, can't you, with a little heart next to it.
I think there was some kind of when he opened the map and scanned the environment, you could see so I think you could place a marker, I think it said, which I think that's what he did.
But by the way, just when he popped that ladder up, I don't know if you caught it, but there was something popped up to do with the load capacity. So I'm thinking that there's probably a limit to how much you're carrying as to when you can go up and down ladders.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe,
That's really
if you're half capacity, you can't go up ladders anymore.
Something I would like to note here as well is, so we've entered into this like array. There are like
a proximity sensor, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And it noticed that the cargo we've got, which in a moment we'll drop off, is highlighted purple. That's almost suggesting that if you came here without the cargo, the door that's to the left of Sam here would close and not allow you to enter it.
And it also detects that there's a weapon, doesn't it? Weapon detect.
Yes, and then it says, I think that you're not allowed to use the weapons or something at this point.
I mean, while we're on this screen, Rich, I mean, this is what we've said earlier, this link to some mission to the moon. There we see from Sapiens to Ludens on the side of this. Well, to put it bluntly in what we said initially, Rich, it looks like a crashed spaceship, doesn't it? It looks like a probe.
Yeah, in essence.
Or like a pod that's been sent out and has crash landed. So, yeah, how this has come about, but then when you go inside, it certainly fits a bunker, doesn't it?
Yeah, because there's like a door at the end, which we'll see in a moment. And something to note, from Sapiens to Ludens. So that suggests that we're going to go to the moon in some way. Yeah,
trying to colonise it. Perhaps there was a mission to colonise, and we've already seen through a clip in the previous trailer a literal reference to, we'll see it all. I'll take you to the moon or something like that.
See, this is interesting. He looks at this poster, which on the poster it says, "I'll keep coming," and I think he says here, "You're right, Sam," or something, as if he's talking to himself. But I wonder whether he's talking to the poster. You mentioned to me today that you wonder whether Sam might be a clone, and it does make me wonder, especially with what the chap in here says about you are who you are at the end of the day. I wonder whether there's some backstory with this character on this poster.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like the Ludens character, the mascot of Kojima Productions, which is told us back in the day it was never going to appear in this game, but it almost looks certain it will now.
No, yeah.
And certainly that looks like, well, Sam in the first shot almost definitely kind of partly in this Ludens gear, and then on the right shot, well, it's just the full Ludens gear up. Makes you think that Sam was maybe in a former life some sort of an astronaut, some sort of that was his job. He was one of the first to land on the moon and lead this what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, motive to colonize it. So and perhaps therefore he's kind of famous because of that. Obviously, he's got this tagline, which is part of almost his branding. "I'll keep coming," which is perhaps the kind of message of hope they're sending out to all of these stranded individuals.
Yeah, that's true.
He's this delivery guy. He's going to keep coming. Don't worry, he will be there. So, I mean, there is that. I've got that slight thought in my mind that is there some sort of clone mechanic there? But if it is like that, that explains it without them needing to be a clone. But it just made me think it was the way he refers to himself. It's a bit strange.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the graphics are absolutely gorgeous on this game. So he comes in, and just to say, in the back of the before he activates his terminal, in the back of the shop there's almost a door, and it's almost it looks a bit like an MGS door. When they had like a red marker when you couldn't go through them on MGS, it sort of looks like that.
Well, I was thinking Fallout as well, mate, like a Fallout vault. It looks like a heavy-duty sealed door that would be in a bunker. Yeah.
And we'll see now as we move on that we have this menu come up, and there's quite a few bits to talk about here. So this is where we see all of these menus. So you've got the happiness, what we think Sam's happiness menu, the boot meter, the BB meter, this heart meter, which we think is your health. You can see your current cargo and that's your cargo that you can carry, so 120 kilos by the looks of it. And then again we see the likes, 925 total likes in some way, and then we see these hands, which again is 31. We don't know what that refers to.
And then, sorry Rich, just to take us back a step, I'm thinking as we're going through this, it would make sense. We think, don't we, that the Cataclysm was perhaps started by some sort of mission to the moon, probably involving Cliff. And again, some altruistic mission, but it obviously went horribly wrong. Well, would it make sense that perhaps they sent all these kind of ships out to colonize the moon, to create these little hubs, little space stations, and instead what's happened, something went horribly wrong, and these pods have kind of been kicked back to Earth, almost like escape pods, and they've ended up, because it would make sense, wouldn't it, if this pod that we're in was to land on the moon? Well, it could be the same thing. They could dig down into the moon and colonize it by creating an underground cavern on the moon. Instead, it went wrong, kicked back to Earth, and it served a similar role of creating this underground space.
I like it.
So sorry, just to extend that, but I mean, there's so much going on here, isn't there? I mean, should we just talk through some of those menu options and what we think they could be?
Yeah, so take on order, I think that's probably take on an order that's sitting there, whether it's for this Luden's fan bait delivery terminal, or whether it's
from one of the inhabitants that we see, you know.
Exactly, yeah. And then it looks like he's got this make delivery, deliver requested cargo, which suggests that some people can request specific cargo. Deliver requested supplies, so again that suggests that they need to be kept up, you know, with, I guess, food and water, etc. And then deliver lost cargo, which is what I believe Sam's doing now.
Exactly, yeah. And just to scroll down a bit more, well, what else we've got? Claim materials. Perhaps again you get materials as rewards for delivering cargo supplies. Recycle, we're not entirely sure on, but again.
Yeah. Now I've had a thought about this. Now, what would happen if you go out somewhere and you find a piece of kit that you need, but unfortunately you're already loaded up too heavily because you were doing something else, so you can't pick up whatever it is you found. So I wonder whether this recycle is a way of basically dumping kit. So I don't know, for instance, I've taken out 15 guns. Oh, I found this thing that I need to progress the mission, but I haven't got any space. Well, I can go back, I can recycle 5 guns and pick up this thing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, they can kind of be forged into different pieces of equipment as well. Or even things like boots, as they wear out and they become old. Any sort of consumable like that you could chuck into. Yeah,
I like it. No, that's probably more what it's like.
We've got entrust cargo for delivery now. This we think is playing in again to the asynchronous gameplay, the multi-varied asynchronous gameplay, as this kind of tells us now. So this might be literally that if I'm playing a game Rich is, I'm entrusting Rich to make a cargo delivery on my behalf, which I suppose there's risks with, because well, perhaps somebody won't do that, and you know, or perhaps you can use the cargo selfishly and not, you know, help your buddy out or help your fellow man out. Who knows?
Yeah. Share locker, I think, is you can you can share your locker with somebody else. So if you want them to have a specific item, you can put an item in your share locker and share it with them, and they can get that item.
Yeah, and that just kind of screams out at you, doesn't it? The private locker is for yourself, for things you want to store for access. The share locker is like, oh, well, I don't need this many of those. Why don't I just put it in the share locker, help other people playing the game?
Oh, that's really interesting. I've not seen this on the previous runs through on this trailer. Fabricate equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a really, really interesting game dynamic, and I'm just looking at that now. I'm really interested in that.
You love the word fabricate coming from an engineer.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You're all over it.
One of the things we said about Breath of the Wild, when we've looked at that, we've said actually one of the things they could make it great would be to add some sort of a weapons creation thing where you use the tools at your disposal, fire, magnesis and all this, to forge weapons. Well, it looks like there's some sort of weapons or equipment forging thing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's as you're right, it's very exciting when you've got that ability to knock things up on the fly that could be used. I mean, presumably most things are going to be like ladders and repelling equipment, wet traversal gear. But who knows? Could be weapons, a similar way to Phantom Pain, something like that.
Yeah, I like it.
I think that's pretty much all I've got to say on this screen. I mean, we can touch upon that star up there, Rich. Do we think that's
which we're not
the ranking of this particular settlement?
I originally thought that, but if you notice, that logo is like 2 rings that are like intertwined with each other, as if that's its link quality, or its link grade, or its link. Maybe that goes up as you deliver more stuff to them.
And to be fair, it's interesting that on the same screen, that Cupid. Well, this one says, I swear that says Cupid level 1, even though we know the device, the necklace, is called Cupid. So, and then Fragile Express is mentioned. I mean, it's very confusing, but maybe it is to do with, leveling up your Cupid. The more you collect, the better the rank, the better you.
Unless yours is a Q-pip and Fragile's is a Q-pid.
That's a good call. Yeah. Which again plays into what we've discussed before, because we're pretty convinced she's the second playable character, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, nothing really going into that. I'm hoping so, and that would suggest that, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that kind of suggests that Fragile's been here, that it's connected to the network via Fragile.
Yes,
Maybe.
I would think so.
Very interesting.
Right.
We've come up with that on the fly, Rich. I'm proud. I think that's a good shout.
Right, let's play this on. So here you can see a couple of things. He's returning the lost cargo, which is some character figurines. Predicted likes. What do we think that is, Tabz?
Well, again, it's unit's name. It's some sort of reward, isn't it, for what you're doing? We don't know what likes are going to be a currency for, but you can see the likes if we trace down to the bottom of the screen. He's got seem to be a total of 925 so far.
Yes.
So seemingly they can be used for something or traded for something that's worthwhile. We don't know anything more than that. Whether that feeds into this idea of a social media system, I'd love it. Or whether it's just a jokey reference to the kind of the world we live in at the minute, who knows? But very interested by it nonetheless. Definitely.
We'll just play this on. And this is what I say, this comes up out of the ground. He's put this container that he had on his back, you can see it's gone from its back and it goes into the ground as if it's going down to it. And then this chap...
I've just had a thought, Rich, sorry, just to stall, can you pause?
Yeah.
So what if the predicted likes acts as like a reputation meter? So you'd obviously think, Red Dead Redemption 2, you had this kind of bar, didn't you, between being a good person and being a bad person. What if the more likes you have, the more your reputation increases in the world, so that when you meet new people, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about you, you're a good guy. It kind of increases their response.
Yeah, maybe.
And in RPG games, you can equate it to, you often have like a speech skill or a speech stat, and the better you are at that, the more options will be open to you when you speak to people.
I like
it. Could function as that. Anyway, carry us on. Apologies.
So this hologram is not very visible. It's quite, and this is where we see Sam. He takes this key necklace off. He puts it on the terminal, and all hell seems to break loose, which is really interesting. It just shows the power of the chiral network, I guess. It's powerful enough to lift him off the ground.
And you were spot on, Rich. I thought these were runes with unique abilities, but as you pointed out, it is just a key for a console. But a very important one because, it connects each node to the chiral network.
Interesting to know as well that he's crying when this happens.
Oh, I didn't spot that.
Yeah, a tear goes down his face.
Wow.
Down his cheek. As if he's affected by
response.
Well, yeah, or it's to do with this chirality that he's got.
Which would make sense because it's a chiral network. Yeah.
So then this is an interesting one. So this is the map basically, and if you look just here, you can see this building, which is where I think he's come from.
Yeah,
that's where I think he's come from.
Yeah, so that looks very on the right hand side.
And it's quite close. It's quite close to where he is, and also, if you heard me say about the ray dome that was down the creek or the valley, I think that's this here, and then this would be another ray dome.
Well, there's a significant settlement there. I still think that over on the east side, mate, where you can see like there's almost a highway, and then there's like a big city build-up. I think that's where the whiteout is. A bit further up, yeah.
Oh, here?
Yeah, around there. I think the White House is likely to be somewhere around there.
Okay, well, that's cool.
I'm not sure.
So So are we sort of suggesting that each one of these like dotted outlines is like there's a node somewhere in that quadrant that we can activate?
Potentially. Oh, I see what you mean. I think I don't know. I think there's going to be quite a few in there, mate. I would say there could be multiple nodes within each of those.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it would make sense that those stand for like cities, wouldn't it? because we know they're the United Cities of America, so that each kind of dotted outline would be a city. But I don't know if there's multiple nodes within each one. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, just while you've got that up, mate, if you go down a bit, there looks to be like a mass. There's this BT. See the black?
Oh yeah.
You see that? Like a kind of big black linking, and it looks like a huge BT.
Yeah, it does.
And
that's really
it's almost a big crater as well. But yeah, carry on. Carry on for us.
So as I said, then we have this menu. Gone.
I was just going to say, I am severely lagging behind, so you kind of carry on, and I'll catch up when.
So obviously, this is the map of the United Cities of America, and as you can see, we look like we're like connected on the right hand side. So all of this lighter blue, like coloured in section, is like connected almost. And then you can see everything to the left is not connected. We reference these void outs, which you can see quite clearly are almost all over the map.
Yeah.
But there is this significant portion here that is, I mean, look at the size of this one here.
It's got to be Edge, not City, hasn't it, around there?
Yeah, I'd thought so, yeah. Just play this on, you can see like there's almost like you can see where it's connected now. And it says new strand established. And I wonder whether linking that back to previous trailers we've seen, where we see these strands that are coming out and going up into the sky, whether these are these strands that we're connecting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure on that. Could be. I think it's interesting that the node that we've activated though hasn't actually been connected to those what look like bigger nodes.
No, it hasn't, no.
So that does seem to
almost...
me that there is a main line, that we can connect up. And then there's these kind of tributaries or capillaries that aren't part of the main network, but, still factor into it in some way. And I mean, we mentioned before, but these could act as fast travel points, those mainline ones, just to make life a little bit easier.
Well, I think so. Look at the size of it. Look at the size of the map.
It does look really big, actually, doesn't it? Really big. And I mean, you pointed out the body of water, haven't you, Rich?
You're about this darker patch running down the middle?
Yeah, we just think that's the body of water, and then you can see a big mountain range on the far west of the map, which we wondering if where it's Heartman's base.
Which does appear to have some void outs, actually.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I hadn't noticed those before. So there's some activity over there as well.
And then we can see as we come out of that map that now this place has joined the chiral network. Suddenly the holograms are a lot better. And you can see that this is this chap that was hosting the Gamescom
Jeff Keighley.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, this was the big moment, wasn't it? And the audience were like, oh, it's Jeff, look.
And it's interesting that he says, I'll check over the cargo and hit you back by email. As if like he needs to look at it and see how many likes he's going to give you. Maybe that's why it's a predicted like, so you don't know what you're going to get. I don't know, that's an interesting...
Yeah, that is interesting actually. Very good point. Yeah, it's predicted. Again, that actually adds more fuel to the fire for me that it could be a functional social media system.
And we did just see there that his cargo, because he dropped off whatever it was, 28 kilos, he's now down to 14 kilos in his load. And this now has a thing saying it's connected as the United States of America. And this is quite funny. He makes like a UCA.
Like the YMCA sort of dance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then we notice here, as he leaves this like area, it says weapons activated again, so it means he can use his weapons again.
I have to say,
I was just going to say that was very deliberate falling off the cliff there to show this specific game mechanic.
I have to say, Rich, I found this kind of a bit jarring, the whole gameplay. The tone of it was very different. We've mentioned the whole weeing thing, how that's kind of jokey, light-hearted. And then just that fall, I mean, if it was as realistic as we once thought it was, he would have broke both of his legs doing that.
Yeah.
And he just kind of bounces back up.
A YouTuber that we both quite like, Yong Yi, was like, how has he survived that? That was his first reaction to that. And it didn't even look like he took any damage whatsoever
No.
from such a long fall.
I mean, I suppose you want the game to be fairly forgiving, so you're not dying left, right, and centre. But
Well, certainly I do.
but yeah, it was a bit, you know, and generally the tone of this trailer was a bit kind of, it was very light-hearted, wasn't it? It was very.
Definitely, and I think Kojima just wanted to show this mechanic where you're creating this care for your baby. So, you know, the baby's in distress because you've just fell and, you know, rocked it about. So he's now got to, you know, rock the baby back and forwards to try and get it back into a good place.
Which is kind of cool. I mean,
yeah.
Whether this could get old in the game, maybe, but it's a cool implementation of the motion control.
Definitely. And again, fantastic graphics. The graphics in this game are gorgeous.
Almost.
And again, it's interesting. This grip for balance is really interesting. Another little mechanic that you're obviously going to have to get used to.
Yeah, and perhaps will be quite fun actually.
Yeah.
You know, a bit like your Zelda glider. This is a way of quickly getting downhill, but in a way that you've got to, you know, measure and be careful with.
Exactly that. So that's that one. Are you happy to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we didn't touch upon was the amount of nodes activated, the logo, and then also the logo for signal strength, which we did touch upon in the first part of this video. So if anybody wants to hear more on that, please go back.
So now we're going to move on to with the first character reveal, or character spotlight as they're being called, which was the Heartman character spotlight. And yeah, so Kojima's obviously, he wants to make this game about characters and be very character driven. So let's get into this trailer. So Heartman, again played by Nicholas Winding Refn, and it's a special guest appearance, and that basically means they're using his likeness but not his voice.
Yeah, it's one of what we think we're going to see a list of cameos from Kojima's kind of Hollywood friends. I think this guy's a director, isn't he? And
yes.
It's interesting the way that is. There's a slight bit of indulgence with it, I suppose you could say, but you know, I'm all up for it. I'm game for it, and certainly this record player is always cool. As we know, I'm a big collector of vinyl records. For those of you who don't know.
So just so we can see, it says at the bottom, until resuscitation time, remaining time. So this character is basically, as we touched on earlier, it's a character that basically every 21 minutes he basically dies for, what is it, 3 minutes, Tabz?
Yeah, that's right. So he's over in the world of the dead / purgatory, this kind of beach place we see that's greyed out for 3 minutes at a time, and you know, that confirmed something we thought, that this guy had lost some family members, because in the previous trailer we saw he's scrambling to stay in that place because he thinks perhaps he spotted one of his family, and that seems to be his purpose for being, to try and make contact with his family in purgatory.
Exactly that, and that seems to be his mission, to try and get back to them, and that seems to be his sole mission. And he has this like automated defibrillator basically, and that's this orange package that we've got just here, and that in essence just wakes him back up again.
We don't know why this has happened, you know, what happened to him to create this, but it seemed to be a decade ago, roughly a decade ago, 9.97 years. Was that the start of the Death Stranding? Did that do something to him and his family? I'm sure we'll find out.
And he restarts the timer then, till he knows when basically he's going to go under again. I guess he has to prep to make sure he's not just going to collapse with whatever he's doing. But yeah, I think there's some background to come on this yet, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. It's a really interesting kind of setup, and I think it's all these characters are really good ways to push the story along. Sam's going to be visiting them perhaps multiple times throughout his journey. We're going to see their character, a narrative and story arcs play out, and how they kind of interact with Sam's. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So
I kind of wish we can interact. Well, we'll come back to it actually. Go on, Rich.
So, just a few things here. I've paused it at this specific point, Tabz, to show the 5 glass cases, which appear to have minerals in them, or at least they look like minerals. We don't know why or what they're in reference to, but I feel like they have some sort of meaning within the game.
Again, are these all unique and specific elements, compounds that have come into being since Death Stranding, and that's why he's kind of got them in these display cases? And again, could they factor into being resources in this new world that we can use to craft materials? I don't know.
Potentially. And then on the left-hand side here, and I've just highlighted with the mouse, this is what we think is a body. We don't know what we think this is a body bag, basically.
It looks very similar.
We don't know whether Sam's brought this, or whether maybe this is his family, his missus, or whether it's her body in some sort of status, so that if he does find her, he can get back to her. We don't know at this point, do we?
We don't know, but we feel that if this guy acts as a vendor, and based on his unique ability to dive into the purgatory and the world of the dead, well, then there's got to be a reason for that. And you know, we're wondering if that's Sam's bringing these bodies of people who hold very key and important information, and you know, Heartman has an ability to maybe communicate with them in that 3 minutes in the other world, and that's what kind of purpose he'll serve for Sam's mission. I mean, just to point out, Rich, I mean, what is that kind of almost not mannequin?
Yeah, you're going to refer to this, aren't you? This really strange white.
It's like one of the Death Stranding things, isn't it? Or it makes me think of Psycho Mantis a little bit as well. But
yes,
I can't place that at all. I don't know what he's got where he's got that from.
No, it's an enigma.
Oh, sorry. Where were we?
So here he's basically talking to Sam about
face-to-face meeting.
There's
just too much.
How he is basically.
Go around.
Can't be easy living like this.
Yes.
Cool suit.
Now
it is a cool suit, to be fair.
It isn't especially.
And he's basically saying that he lives his life from 21 minutes to the next, and he tries to fit everything into those 21 minutes.
You can see behind him on the picture as well at one point there a picture of his family. Seems to be 3 figures I can make out.
Yeah, so almost like a wife or a girlfriend and maybe a son or daughter.
Young child and then a son or daughter a bit older.
Do you read, Sam?
And then he's referencing the fact that he's massively into like literature, music, video games, like movies basically, and all of his movies are specifically no more than 21 minutes long.
I really hope that there's some interactive property there that you can maybe pull out a couple of the pieces and play the music or watch them on the telly. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, that is cool.
Who knows, maybe it's just to... It's definitely giving you a real deep sense of Heartman's life, isn't it? And how he gets by.
Yeah, and he's basically saying here that he doesn't care about being here. He literally is wasting the time away, waiting to get back to recoup his search for his family. In essence,
it's ironic.
It's a sad story almost. Yeah,
and it's ironic because this is the world of the living, but he considers this almost dead. You know, he's dead in that time. He's only alive really when he's back closer to his family. It's very sad.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the Heartman trailer, and as much as we can get from that, I don't think there's as much in that as there is these other two, to be fair.
No.
So are you up for going straight into the Mama trailer?
Let's keep going strong, mate. I'm flagging a bit now, but we'll push on.
So, Mama.
Yeah.
Played by Margaret, is it Qualley?
Qualley, yeah. Margaret Qualley, I think.
So it looks like Sam has come to this place, and I'd just like to pause it on this because I think it's really interesting that this, what would you call it, a baby's mobile, is beached whales, so beached things.
Oceanic creatures, essentially.
Yeah, and in the Japanese extended trailer from May, one of the enemies was an octopus or an
Yeah.
octopus type creature.
And we've
So I
seen
do think that's interesting.
we've seen Sam transitioning, haven't we, through some sort of. Well, the very first trailer was him on like a beach and stranded
Yeah.
whales, and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's been transitioning through this kind of underwater place where he's almost always naked. It
Yes.
seems to be part of either going to the world of the dead or coming back from the world of the dead. It's like
Yeah.
a transitionary stage. So there's definitely some meaning there. Do feel free to tell me what you're seeing, Rich, because it's just still paused on the mobile on my end.
So obviously Sam has spotted these little hands on the ceiling, and then this like ghostly figure of a baby with an umbilical cord coming down, and Sam is instantly worried because he knows that this is a BT. But Mama comes along and says, you know, don't worry about it, basically.
It's my daughter.
It's interesting that she said you made it. That suggests that she is not wherever Sam resides. So he's had to trek to wherever she is.
Yeah, and we later find out it seems she's anchored here. I mean, just to point out though, mate, again, we saw on the mobile there the texture on it, and we saw earlier Sam's leather cap. The detail on the textures is unbelievable.
It's outstanding, isn't it? It really is. I mean, this must be pushing the boundaries of graphical capabilities on this generation.
Absolutely.
So she's in essence telling Sam not to worry here, and like, pulls the baby down, and
just to point out, we do see in the background this collapsed sort of. I don't know where it looks like a massive building that's collapsed, doesn't it?
yeah, basically, in essence, it looks like a roof's caved in. You can really see it there, can't you?
Yeah.
It looks like the roof's caved in over there. So this building is sort of half inside, half outside.
So this is obviously almost the exact scene where Mama got trapped and her baby sadly died.
Yes.
And now she's seemingly anchored to this point. I mean, whether that she needs to be or not, but I think she feels the only way she can maintain the connection with her daughter in the Death Stranding is by staying here.
And from what we've seen, it looks like she's like a mechanic. So, you know, you can see there's various different things in the background. There's a vehicle right in the background right here. We think she's some sort of mechanic, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be her main purpose for the UCA. She's going to be, Sam's kind of mechanic, and she's going to maintain the vehicles, perhaps upgrade them, modify them. I mean, it excites me, mate, because that kind of big truck thing behind it looks cool.
I know, that looks really cool, doesn't it?
I hope we can get that out at some point.
It's interesting that she has a different chiral sensor as well. Completely different. Almost looks like a Scouts or Cub or Scouts honour. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nice to see that individuality, isn't it? Maybe hers serves a different purpose with her daughter. But yeah, I mean, we see the handcuffs again, which we've seen on the characters of Heartman, we see it on Deadman. I've read something recently. You see the kind of flames coming off of there. I've read something recently that they signify the kind of allegiance to the UCA. So maybe they don't serve so much as of a physical purpose. They are more a symbol of, I am part of the UCA. But I still don't buy that. I still think they must serve some sort of a purpose for all the characters to be wearing.
Well, the thing is, we have seen Sam specifically. He's going out on a mission, and he specifically like clips it on as if it has some sort of meaning, like it's needed to go out. Why would we see it so specifically referenced?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it feels like it's some sort of anchor for the
Yes.
the reality that you're in. To me, but I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see on that.
There, she's down.
So then all of a sudden the baby is, calm again, so that everything's restored to normality, and there's a bit of Kojima being Kojima there.
What is she?
Oh, with the boob grab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where
a bit gratuitous.
she explains, yes, basically.
Okay.
And then she's explaining basically that
Not like the other.
it's her baby. She can't move from here. That
They're hooked up.
I mean, that's the thing. She could move from here, but she would lose a baby, so she chooses not to move from here.
Yeah, which makes absolute sense. You can totally understand.
Yeah. And then obviously we see these vehicles, and then that is her introduction.
So yeah, really interesting. I think she looks like a great character, and again, this very unique connection. Tragic, of course, but unique connection to the Death Stranding.
Definitely. And it's a different take. Like, you're connected to your BB's plight because of almost the exact opposite scenario.
Yeah, it's another theme that's there, isn't there? Connection, familial bond, motherhood. It's interesting what he's trying to explore and comment on with that.
Right, so finally, and this probably is the most interesting character reveal, we have the Deadman character spotlight.
Which finally gives us some kind of context and background on these BB things that...
Definitely. So it appears Sam has come to this place and there's something wrong with his baby. You can see that it's reading caution here. Now, I assume this is probably the first time your baby runs out of its health bar or its synchronization bar.
Yeah, well, this is what he refers to as autotoxemia, which is an actual condition where I think kind of the body toxifies itself because of some reaction. So yeah, obviously something's gone wrong. Maybe this bar we were talking about, Rich, is depleted, and this is what happens.
It's in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Good.
So he's plugged it into this. He's plugged it into this machine, and at this point,
kind of like how the
Deadman
baby's
comes in.
upside down.
Yeah, it is cool. Deadman comes in and starts explaining that, you know, it's basically born from a still mother, which basically means a brain dead, unfortunately, mother. And the mother is kept alive in the intensive care unit of a hospital. Where's the hospital, Tabz?
I think it's in Capital, not City, they refer to
That's
that.
it,
So I
yes.
might be wrong, but yeah.
And they have to link them back from time to time to synchronize them with their mothers.
Yeah, basically it's a deception to trick the BBs into thinking they're still in their mother's womb. So they basically, the sync, what it does is it mimics the exact stasis of the mother's womb at that particular time.
Yes.
Or at least that's how it's explained. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Let's be honest. We were hoping this explanation might alleviate some of the moral dilemmas involved in using a baby as a piece of equipment, but it doesn't do that at all. It probably makes it worse, doesn't it, Rich?
Yeah, you would say if anything it doubles down on it.
Yeah.
Which is not the best. And it's interesting to note again, Deadman is a hologram. He's not really there.
Exactly, yeah, that's really interesting.
But he can interact with this world. If you watch here, he uses his wrist to activate this machine.
I mean, this is clearly a Bridges facility. He's clearly a Bridges employee because he's got a little Bridges badge on. So he obviously works there. I also wanted to point out, Rich, you could see the rainbow effect outside. You know, when it's doing this kind of charging thing.
Yeah, I've paused it at that exact moment. What do you think that relates to?
It's got to be to do with the chirality or the chiral networking, because what it's doing right now, it's connecting via the chiral network to the still mother. So any sort of chiral phenomena seems to cause this sort of circular rainbow effect, which we've seen multiple times outside in the open.
Yeah, you're actually absolutely right. We've seen that when we've seen the time fall. We've seen it there.
So,
yeah, it's really interesting.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting to know. I think this is from very early on in the game, because I'm sure I've seen on one of the trailers, and I'll try and find it and put a clip in here if I can find it. We've seen a bridge baby in this, but also in the background here where there's just emptiness. I think we've seen different suits there.
Well, we saw a minute ago there was was it like a mannequin hanging up?
Yeah. So I wonder whether And that maybe that mannequin is where this set of clothes that Sam's wearing now would go.
Yeah.
And then we further have more mannequins when we gain more equipment. I don't know, I'll do some research on that and try and put something in there for you.
So maybe Deadman. I mean, we once thought that Heartman was the sort of Hugh character who gave you all the equipment and stuff, but maybe Deadman's that character.
Yeah, I think we're wrong on that. I think he is. I think you bang on the money there. This is where we come to restock, and he's our scientist person that tells us, you know, this is what you need, this is how it works.
Which again factors into the theory we're developing that, I mean, we touched upon in the flip charts, but that Deadman is called Deadman because he was a man who died and has had his brain transplanted into another person's body, probably because he's such a talented, brilliant scientist that they needed to do everything they could to preserve him. So, you know, I mean, that came about because, I mean, we're seeing brain dead mothers who, you know, are having some sort of telepathic connection with their babies, and it's created these BBs. Anything's within the realms of possibility, even brain transplants. So I think that is probably why he's called Deadman. And again, that is probably Deadman's unique connection with the Death Stranding. Because in body he's dead, but his mind has been preserved. And whether that means he can step in and out of the world of the dead at will, and maybe that's something to do with like the fact that he's not physically here. I don't know. It's hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. And it's interesting here, he's talking about this outer toxemia that we referenced in the flip charts.
Yeah, I think that outer thing there is actually like a typo because the captions can't quite predict what he's saying, but it's called autotoxemia.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right, mate. It sounds like he pronounces it like that because of his accent.
Okay. And it's really interesting to note here that there almost seems like an amount of love from Sam to the baby. You know, Sam likes him almost.
There's a fondness there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a narrative that's going to play out, that he wants his baby to live. He wants it to become something. He treats it almost like his child now. He wants to care for it. He wants to see it become, you know, an older baby.
Yeah, I think so. And also, you know, it plays the role of, in this wacky Kojima way. I mean, imagine Rich Red Dead Redemption 2. It was your horse. You bonded with your horse, and you were there throughout your entire journey with your horse. And I think it seems to play that role, doesn't it? As your little buddy, serves a different purpose and is completely different in appearance. But even going back to games like Shadow of the Colossus and Aggro, and that you bonded with your horse. And
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And I think that's what he's exploring with this, but in a very, very different way. So I think that will be almost another part of the game.
Yeah, and
kind of keeping the baby alive.
If you look at both of those games you've just referenced, and this is a spoiler, I believe both of those horses die in those games.
Aggro doesn't. You think he dies, but he actually comes back. He survives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But there's an emotional connection when you think that they're. I mean, it happens in Red Dead Redemption, and you know it's really sad. And I wonder whether there's a building of emotions towards your BB here from Sam and obviously from you, because you will, you know, it's like you're caring for the baby during the game, and you know, if unfortunately it dies in the end, you know, it's going to be a sad time.
I think there has to be a way to save it, doesn't there? The fact that they touch upon it in this trailer, you know, it's there has to be a way to save the babies. Yeah,
and maybe it's whether you choose to.
Yeah,
how you play
like
the game
it
defines that.
Yeah, I like that.
Much like in Red Dead Redemption, you could be very good or you could be very bad. You know, there was opposite sides. Maybe that's similar has come into this.
Yeah, you can choose to treat the baby as just a piece of equipment to serve its purpose and pass it on, or you can choose to nurture it and really strengthen that bond. Each way to play probably has its own pros and cons.
You must understand.
And it's interesting that Sam's specifically asking him, is there a way to save the baby?
Yeah, betraying the fact that he's very bonded with it already.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the most interesting things said here. Deadman specifically says we don't know enough about BBs. but until we expand the chiral network and recover past data, we won't know, much more about them. That's interesting. It's like they've lost this huge library of data due to the chiral network being destroyed or dissolved.
Which again makes sense, doesn't it? This big cataclysm, mission to the moon, they were transferring, knowledge, data, and it all went wrong when the Death Stranding occurred, and it's blown to smithereens. So that again makes sense. And it's a carrot, isn't it? It's a carrot they're dangling to push you on in this story. And I think, we're talking about the BBs, but I think it's going to have even greater, kind of resolutions in as far as the characters, but also, I still hold strong, Rich. I still think we end up on the moon. And I think the chiral network will lead to that, discovery that we need to, the only way to stop the Death Stranding or to cure it is to go back to the moon.
Agreed. And it's interesting. And if you put that to real life, right? So the internet is a massive resource that we all use every single day, whether it's to look up stuff or to absorb knowledge, absorb information, be it news, whatever. If there was a phenomenon, I don't know, say there was a cataclysmic event and it meant that all of the written text or information was destroyed, the only documentation we would have of that is the internet. Well, then if the internet's gone, until you make the internet work again, there isn't anything.
Yeah, is there these big data servers and satellites in space, and part of the chiral network is to reconnect with those, and it could be anything like that, couldn't it?
It's interesting that that's almost believable that there could be a scenario where actually we know there's information, but until we can get it back, we don't know.
Because they're literally back at a square one scenario, aren't they?
Yeah, in essence.
They've got very crude and basic tools, even though we see all this high tech stuff. In terms of the infrastructure, it's very basic.
That's it, and that is the Deadman trailer.
So, yeah, any summarising thoughts on everything we've seen and talked about, Rich? There's a lot going on.
Well, the overarching thing I've had on the last couple of days was just the information overload. We've had so little information about this game, and in one foul swoop for about 30 minutes on a stage at Gamescom 2019, Kojima spilled the beans.
And he gave Jeff Keighley, his friend, the exclusive of the year, didn't he, really, with that?
Yeah.
I think in the end, Gamescom was a bit of a non-event, apart from, the reveal of Death Stranding.
Certainly that live event was. There wasn't really much going on, was there? I mean, there was a few
afterwards
other
it's
bits
been really good.
that.
But yeah, that opening night live was a bit of a letdown until we got there.
It almost the trouble is, what was coming at the end with Kojima was so big, you felt like, well, who's going to want to come before that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a mic drop moment at the end, and you think, well, I'm not putting my content before that.
No,
so I think that's why a lot of good stuff have come out after that, because Kojima was always going to steal the thunder at the start of it.
So I think next up we've got, we're probably awaiting for the publicised briefing video that's been shown at Gamescom that we've heard and now seen articles written about, which certainly gives us a few more tidbits that we've already discussed. And I think, in one simple broad brushstroke, the game is obviously this kind of solitary pilgrimage that has been described to, or compared with the film The Postman with Kevin Costner. And it's all about creating connection, bringing people back together, sending a message of hope. Nice, easy package for it.
Absolutely.
But then at the same time, we've seen now all of these very complex moving parts and interconnected systems, multivariate gameplay dynamics, very Kojima, and it's kind of blowing my mind at the same time. It's really
there's
exciting.
So much going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but there's so much going on now. You don't know where to look at the moment. I mean, I hope the game doesn't play like that, like it's literally the whole game all the way through is just a mind melt. But I don't think it will be. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah.
I just think we've known so little about it, and then all at once we've had this massive dump of information that you are a little bit blown away by it.
It's overwhelming, isn't it? And when you think about all these little missions that you've got to achieve as Sam, rescue Amelie, bring the world back together, kill the Death Stranding, defeat Cliff, defeat the Homo Demons. It is like, this game feels like it's going to be 150 hours long plus, maybe.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
But maybe when,
it's crazy.
with this whole asynchronous gameplay, working together, maybe that's part of the trick of the game. Once you really get on board with that, it becomes a much easier experience. I'm very excited by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'm more excited now I know a bit more about it, even though I don't know. There's lots of things I wish I knew more about. I'm more excited about it. So yeah, it's really good. It's really exciting.
So what do you think, Rich? Wrap it up there and say goodbye to the Barcadians for now, but tune in maybe shortly.
Stuck with us.
Yeah, and tune in next time. I mean, I think probably just after TGS will be the next update, won't it, Rich?
On Death Stranding, definitely.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think that'll be it. I don't think we'll see anything after TGS on Death Stranding. I think he'll let the game play out then. And
we'll still have our unboxing of the special edition to come though on that one. So
absolutely.
Stay tuned
Definitely.
on that. We'll get together for that one, I think, Rich, and have a bit of a weekend of Death Stranding, aren't we? So.
Sounds brilliant, mate. Sounds fantastic.
So do you want to wrap this up, my friend?
Yep, Sam. Right, well, if you enjoyed that video all about Death Stranding, give us a like. If you didn't, give us a dislike. We do like the feedback from you guys. It keeps us growing. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you like our content, and remember to click that bell so you get all the notifications of our new content.
And just to say, get a word in, please do go and like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram to see more from us and just to interact with us more. We always like to hear your thoughts.
Definitely. I mean, drop us a comment if you've got anything. We'd love to hear what you think about the game. Are you excited for the game? Is it something you're excited for? So, without further ado, I think that's what we've got time for. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.